This is Sawyer Robertson, and you're listening to the Bearcast on SicEm365.com.
Saturday. Colt, I know we're going to dive into this game a little bit. It's going to be significantly shorter, I would say, than most weeks, just because there's not a whole lot to preview from the Samford side of things. But I will say this, going into this week, one of the things that always intrigues me about the FCS matchup is getting to see some of these younger faces that we don't get to see throughout the season as much. And for Baylor, they had a really good 2025 recruiting class. And I think you're going to get to see some of those guys flash a little bit more during this game. That's kind of one of my big headlines going into this one. It kind of always is for freshmen and for backup guys who haven't really seen the field a lot yet.
Yeah, and obviously throw on top of that, Baylor's dealing with some injuries that they need to get healthy before the Arizona State game. So this is a great time for them to get some reps. And I'll even say, like, going to the offensive line, defensive line's different right now because they're playing so many guys because of the injuries. Like, the guys that you're going to see, you probably already heard their names. On the offensive line side of the ball, like, you're going to see a lot of new guys in my mind. Like, it's going to be, you get up 24, 30 points, whatever it might be, hopefully in the first half. And you're going to start seeing some transfers. You're going to start seeing some freshmen that are on the two deep. So I'm excited for this game for those particular reasons. And it's nice to be frank, to kind of just relax. You hope the team's not relaxing too much. But at the end of the day, the score of this game, whatever, like, win the game, and you don't want it to be 10-7, right? But it's like you don't want to have a stressful game. But I'm not worried if this game's, a 3-score game or not. Just go out and play. Don't get hurt. Get some young guys some reps and kind of see what the future has.
I think this game for sure matters a lot more for the defense.
Yeah, sure.
This is one of those moments where I don't really care who's on the field for Baylor. This is not a team that should be scoring more than 7 points in this game. And people can argue that all they want, but and say, oh, well, what if Baylor just, is up by a ton and they give up some points? I do not care. Your backups, your third string guys should not be giving up points in this game. When you look at what they've done so far this year, I mean, Samford scored 3 points and 13 points in their first 2 games. So they haven't been able to score on anyone. Now, they've moved the ball some, but they haven't been scoring. And so I think that's the biggest test for me is, does this defense finally come out and have a really good game? And I mean, frankly, they need it for all their stats and all their metrics, because at the end of the day, I mean, as we know, it's very hard to be a Big 12 title contender if your defense is not pretty dang good. Like, you really have to have a top 50 defense to give yourself a really good shot at making it. And right now, Baylor's sitting at, in the 90s if you look at advanced metrics, at 131 if you look at scoring defense, kind of what they've given up. So it's a big week in my eyes for the defense, not as much for the offense. We kind of know who they are, maybe outside of the run game.
Yeah, I want to see this defense build on what I thought was a better performance against SMU. And you can't, how do you build against Samford? Like, it's just doing what you're supposed to do. So run game, defense, if it's Dave Aranda continues to implement these unique looks, if it's the peso package, which we saw a lot, but they also ran like a 1-4 style of defense quite a bit as well. And that's a depth issue on your interior part of your defensive line, but it also allowed them to get so much speed. So I want to see them build on what was an overall solid day against a Power 4 SMU team in the run game. Like, that 40-yard run late in the game skewed the overall stats. But if you go back, they had a lot of 0 and 1 yard rushes against SMU that they allowed. They have to build on that. And that's the only way this defense is going to take the next step. And then obviously eliminating big plays. If you're giving up big plays to Samford, who actually throws the ball, I mean, I guess that's what they're trying to do in this game. They do it decently well for their level, but you better not be giving up big explosive plays in this game.
Real quick, Sawyer Robertson has something to remind you about.
Want the latest information about your favorite team? Try out SicEm365 premium content the next 3 months for just $5 by clicking the link below.
And now, back to the Bearcast.
Exactly. So here are the reasons why Baylor should dominate Samford. Here's kind of what they've done so far. So, like I mentioned, they scored 3 points and 13 points. That's in matchups against West Georgia and the Citadel, 2 FCS teams in the first 2 weeks of the year. They've turned the ball over 8 times the first 2 weeks. They have a third and fourth down conversion rate of 34.7%. not great there. They've only ran for 114 yards with a 1.9 yards per carry through the first 2 weeks. And they've also allowed 8 sacks. So, I mean, there are a ton of ways for Baylor to take advantage of this offense. You mentioned them throwing the football. Their best player is their quarterback, Quincy Crittenden. He's their guy. They're going to rely on him. So far, the passing offense has 609 yards with 0 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. So far, they've put up roughly 300 passing yards a game. Yeah. I mean, a little more than that. But they can't run the ball at all. They can't pass protect at a high level. They don't really have explosive plays. It's a bunch of short passes that they're trying to get some yards after the catch. So, I mean, they're pretty one-dimensional as an offense. I'd be pretty disappointed if this team was running against Baylor at all, which will be nice because that means we get to see if this secondary is growing at all. Because they're going to get challenged in some regards. They're going to get challenged in one-on-one matchups. They're going to get challenged to get interceptions, actually make plays on the football. They should have chances for that. And then the defensive line should be able to pin their ears back a little bit and try to get after the quarterback. So I think this matchup actually, sets up pretty well for Baylor. I mean, if they play good, which they haven't played good, we can make all the excuses. It's been 2 really good offenses. That's great. But that means in this matchup, the expectation is they play good. Because if they don't, then I don't care if it's the third string defense. Like, if you don't play well in this game, there's not a game on this schedule you're going to play well.
Yeah, and I think rushing defense specifically, because I think you look at the secondary and against Auburn, very minimal being tested against a really good receiving group. I think against SMU, it's just bust coverages. When they were struggling, it's 2 plays, 75 yards, and then the 1 play in overtime for 25 yards were 1 single play drives for scores. And that's all in against the passing game. You can't be giving up that type of stuff. And I don't expect Samford to go over the top and try to take the top off the defense like SMU was able to do. But that's a different type of fix than what the rush defense has been in the first 2 games. So you're absolutely right. Baylor's defensive front, if they're playing a 1-4 or a 2-4, whatever you're talking, they have to control this game. And that's just reality. The talent discrepancy is major when it comes to these types of games. And this is a team from Samford that rushed for 90 yards. I guess that was in their first game against West Georgia. And then in their second game 24 yards against West Georgia. And then like 70-something, 90-something against the Citadel. So, I mean, if you're anywhere in the range of 50-plus yards, I mean, even at that number, that's not good. Like that's based on their performance right now through 2 games.
That feels pretty high, especially when you take into account that they're giving up 4 sacks a game. So Baylor should get at least 2 or 3 sacks at minimum.
I just wonder if Samford comes into this game figuring out how do we get out of this without getting hurt. Like, do we just run the football a ton and not get our quarterback messed up? Because he's a pretty good quarterback, and I don't know what their outlook is. For their conference, what they're projected to do. But if that's your guy,
bad now. Yeah, it's bad because these first 2 games were supposed to be games that theoretically they could win, and they got blown out. So I think their outlook is now like, this is going to be a long season.
And they finished the season with Texas A&M. So shout out to the Aggies for scheduling Samford on November 22nd. SEC's schedule. Hopefully that is all changing as they've announced 9 conference games for the future. But yeah, so that's not a good outlook. 0-2 with those 2 games. But their quarterback looks to be their best player. They're able to throw the ball at least somewhat. And yeah, I mean, this is not a game that Baylor should be giving up more than 7. I mean, and if you're giving up 7, that's unfortunate. Like, how does that 7 points come is how I'm going to ask at the end of it. But a shutout seems more like the standard that Baylor needs to play with this week.
Right. So just quickly, because if you want comparison, so since Dave Aranda arrived, they've played 4 FCS opponents. Of course, they did not play an FCS opponent in 2020. During those games, they're allowing 6.75 points per game. Albany scored the most in 2022 with 10 points. So I guess my point in all that is, once again, based on how Baylor's performed, the expectation should be 7 or less points. Like, if they score a touchdown late, okay, whatever, that's fine. If they score a touchdown early, it's a little bit like, man, they scored against your first string offense. So I think that definitely does matter. I think it'd be nice to see them kick field goals instead of scoring touchdowns. I think that's an area that Baylor needs to improve at, to be honest, based on these first 2 weeks, is getting out of the red zone and getting stops, holding people to field goals. So it'd be nice to see it if they do drive down the field once or twice, that those turn into field goals and not touchdowns.
I mean, and if they're even getting down, I mean, to be frank, like if they're moving the ball to get into your red zone and you're worried about red zone stats, like that's early in the game at least. Like that's I'm gonna be very, very disappointed. And so yes, but if they get there, obviously don't let them score a touchdown. I don't know. We want to see growth, and I think that's what you mentioned. This is what the storyline is for this game: is defensively do what you're supposed to do against a team that's bad and it's also less talented. It's not just a bad, talented team. This is just a less talented, for a different level. FCS, we know the differences and what Baylor should be this year. And that's nothing against those guys at Samford, but it's a different level of play. And Baylor can't go into this game expecting anything less defensively than domination. Like it has to be that if you truly want to go and prove that you're a Big 12 contending team this year. Your offense is going to do it. It's just, can your defense take that next step?
And man, the quarterback for Samford, Quincy Crittenden, I think it's really interesting because Baylor started this year now with 3 mobile dual threat quarterbacks. He's not as explosive as Jennings and certainly nowhere near as explosive as Arnold, but he is a decent runner when he's not getting sacked. And so another dual threat quarterback, and then they turn around and they play Sam Levitt in a week, and then they finally get to face a pocket passer in Zane Flores there at Oklahoma State before facing another runner in Avery Johnson. So it's just like, man, they're going to be prepared, should be prepared for mobile quarterbacks as the season progresses.
Yeah, and I'll say that too. I thought they did a really good job against Kevin Jennings, which we knew he was going to be different. But the emphasis of Dave Aranda spying, you saw that in some of the film that they were spying more. But I do think there's some of that's credit to Baylor. I think that schematically, Dave Aranda's scheme of adjusting, but Baylor just played it better. And then you have to give Jackson Arnold a lot of credit because of the way that he plays. I'm not saying Kevin Jennings isn't fast and he's not elusive, but Jackson Arnold, when he has that read, he's really good. Now, maybe you give Kevin Jennings those read opportunities and he does different and this offense is organized differently. But I thought Baylor did a much better job in this particular game. And also Kevin Jennings is 6 foot, 195 and not Jackson Arnold, who's 6'1", 215, 220. So there's a big difference in that and staying healthy. And I'm sure Rhett Lashley takes that into play, but I do think you're hitting that on the head. Like Baylor's going to face a lot of mobile guys, and playing Jackson Arnold and Kevin Jennings, two of arguably the best that Baylor will face. I mean, Avery Johnson's really good. You're going to face a guy from Utah that's really good about it. Josh Hoover's not. You can go through the list of Sorsby is.
Levitt.
And Levitt is obviously very, very good at that. And honestly, that's in his strength this year. And we can talk about this next week. But, I think that Baylor's experience against that sets up well for Big 12 play. The fact that they got Arnold and Jennings in non-conference is a massive thing for conference play.
Yeah, and I think one key difference there, and this is going to be something that's unique for a lot of the quarterbacks that they face this season, but Jennings is much more of a improv runner, not a scheme runner. Like Rhett Lashley's not trying to run QB draw or QB power or really anything like that. Part of that's due to his size. Part of that is just due to that's not really his style or scheme too. I mean, it's all of that, but like that's not how Jennings succeeds. Yeah. And so then you look at Jackson Arnold and it's like, no. In the big games, Auburn is going to run QB power. Auburn is going to run
They're not dropping back.
Yeah. No, they're going to run him and utilize that. So 2 different styles that Baylor's already faced. Crittenden is more of the Kevin Jennings style where he's an improv runner. They're not going to run a bunch of QB power type stuff, but it's nice to have seen both, I think.
Yeah, and I honestly truly believe with the speed that Baylor can put on the field, especially at the edge with Matthew Fobbs-White, your linebacker speed. Like if there's one thing that we know about this front seven is that they can run across the board. If it's Keaton, if it's Matthew Fobbs-White, I think that Winston has shown that ability a little bit. He's just not in the same mold as Matthew Fobbs-White. But you go through that list and you start playing guys who are kind of leaking out of the pocket but still looking to throw. That's where this front seven is their strongest. And you got to get the defensive line healthy. But I think that even against like Sam Levitt, I think that he's plenty fast, but he's utilized in a different way than Jackson Arnold was. And I think it just sets up really well for this defense. And I truly believe, looking back, that Dave Aranda saw that, and it's kind of the reason he went with some of this personnel that he did out of the portal. Is like, we got to be able to chase quarterbacks. and they have a lot of them on the schedule this year.
And he's mentioned that that's actually where they've thrived, and it's not where they thrived in the past. But unfortunately, they're giving up stuff with gap integrity and giving up stuff in the middle. And that's where someone like Jackson Arnold kills you, because you get an extra blocker with him. And so you get an extra blocker when he's running this QB power, or you're bringing a guy in motion and playing with the linebacker's eyes. And that's where they got killed, just that up the middle stuff, as well as some of his just crazy improv. But it's going to be a very interesting thing to watch going forward for this team. So, Colt, I was also looking at just some of the other things I want to see in this game. I looked specifically at the quarterback position, because I know Sawyer Robertson's going to play probably through the first half, maybe. Try to get him some numbers. I think that makes some sense. You don't want to get him hurt, though, so don't expect to see him running. He's already not running much as is, but I think it's going to be really fascinating to see who the first quarterback that comes in is, because I think that matters. I really do. I know that they might rotate after, but I do think the first guy who steps on that field, whether it's Nate Bennett or Walker White, because I do think he'll be one of those two, will give us an interesting read on kind of where the staff is at with the QB2 position, after kind of thinking the whole offseason it was going to be Nate Bennett. And then about a week before the season, you hear Dave Aranda talking about using Walker White in unique ways, or getting him on the field in some ways. It makes you go, okay, so who's the true backup here? I think that'll be a fascinating thing to watch, as that competition will probably continue through this game.
Yeah, and you hope that this is a game where both of those guys have a lot of drives. And to play off what you're saying, we could very well just see them rotate quarterbacks. They bring in Nate, and then it's Nate, Walker, back and forth, and then Edward, really tip the hand. Then Edward, last try. But I do think like Walker White is physically different than Nate Bennett. That's the biggest difference right off the top. Like, it's just built different. His athletic ability is, I would say, very comparable to Nate, who's actually deceivingly fast. Like, if he has a chance to run in this game and gets in the open field, it should be fun to watch, because he's a very fast quarterback. It's just not very big. Kind of like we talk about with Kevin Jennings. He's slight. You have to protect him. But yeah, like, we don't know that answer yet. But I'm excited to see both of them, how much they actually, depending on the score, how much do they actually throw the football. I think both of those guys, given the opportunity to turn around and hand the football off, is great, but I want to see him throw the football too. That's selfish, and if it's not 50-0 at halftime, maybe you get to see that a little bit. But yeah, it's a fascinating storyline and sets up for the future. Knowing Dave Aranda, though, it's like he might just try to play this where it's just like you still don't know. Like, that just seems like the type of game this could be, even though Walker or Nate comes out as the first, the second quarterback once Sawyer's done. But then he just rotates him. He doesn't give him it's not like Walker goes out there and gets 3 drives and then Nate gets 3 drives in that order. Maybe they just rotate back and forth, and not that that's the best way to do it, but maybe they try to, hold their cards close to vest and not let fans, but also opponents, really understand who the number 2 quarterback is.
Yeah, potentially. I also think if any opponent kind of takes too much away from that, they're kind of kidding themselves, because I do think if Sawyer Robertson was to not play in a game, I could see them using both quarterbacks and using them in different ways, potentially. So it'll be interesting to watch, though, because I do think it matters who goes out first. I think that does tell you something, especially if it's, if Walker goes out first and he's only been on campus, since the spring, and Nate's been on campus for now 2 years, that it does kind of matter.
No, it absolutely does. Yeah, no, for sure. Shifting gears here a little bit, I'm excited to see Caden Knighton in this game, and not because I don't think the other guys are talented or Bryson can't do something. Like, I expect Bryson, if he plays, to get his token carries, but Caden and then those next running backs, I think they kind of get them into a groove in this game, and I think this will be the first chance for Baylor fans to really see Caden's talent and this offense in general and what he's able to do. And obviously they're going to be mismatched, but there's those games, like I remember the Dawson Pendergrass against whatever game that was early in his freshman season.
Long Island.
It was Long Island. I was thinking Texas State, but then they lost that game. But yeah, so he goes out and has that kind of like, he could do something. Like, there's something to him. And I think Baylor fans in general who don't pay too close of attention, Caden might get 12 carries, 13 carries in this game and let him get into a groove and kind of see his talent. I'm excited to see that, but then also the guys behind him, if it's Michael Turner, Joseph Dodds, I want to see that next wave of running backs, but specifically with Caden. I just want to see Caden get out in the open field and make some plays.
Yeah, that was actually something I had written down as well, just the run game
Sorry.
in general. Because Baylor has to run the football in this game, and they
Yeah.
really need to show, something that they haven't shown in the first few games. Now, Samford isn't exactly a complete pushover in the run game, but West Georgia ran for 180 yards, 5.3 yards per carry. The Citadel ran for 162 yards, but just 3.9 yards per carry. So I think in general, Baylor should be able to get to, they should be able to name how much they run for, depending on how much they're trying to throw the football. I think that's kind of what will limit some things potentially. But yeah, I think Caden Knighton could get some carries here. I also think I think Bryson and Caden are going to get protected, though, in this game. I could very well see them combining for like 15 carries. Now, could be 15 carries for 150 yards and 2 or 3 scores. But I just think it's too risky, I think, to play both of them for too long. I think once the starters are done, I bet Bryson and Caden are both done. But hopefully Caden can rip off one of those long runs that we know he did in the spring. We know he did in the fall. That's just kind of been his MO since he got to Baylor. So that'll be exciting. But I am looking forward to seeing Joseph Dodds, and hopefully if Michael Turner is healthy, he can get out there as well, and those two can kind of eat up some yards with that second and third unit going forward. And behind an offensive line that's going to have 2 freshmen in it, potentially in that second unit with Matthew Parker and Harrison Clough. So getting to see those guys, Sean Tompkins hopefully getting a lot of reps in this game at left tackle, maybe see Joe Crocker, Colton Thomason, a lot of intriguing names on the offensive line who should come in and see some reps in this game. And seeing how they perform will also give us a little insight into, what areas do they feel comfortable with? What position should we feel maybe more comfortable with going forward?
Yeah. That's that next wave of offensive line. They've done a good job of developing the depth there that Baylor struggled with for several years. Right after that 21-22 season when they had the 5 guys returning, the depth of the offensive line has just struggled. It truly hasn't been there. And now this year it's like, okay, there's a plethora of guys that you could say, maybe this is their unit. Like maybe this is a guy that plugs in here. You feel good about some of those spots. And I think you have to give full credit to Mason Miller and his, obviously the whole offensive coaching staff, but he has the ability to identify talent and bring guys in. If it's transfers, high school guys, he's done 2 true freshmen in your depth chart. It's not the most exciting thing when you have freshmen in your depth chart, but I think it also speaks to the recruiting ability that he has, that he took some guys, Matthew Parker, Harrison Clough, that had offers to go elsewhere that were talented enough to come in and play. Are they actually the guys next up, or was that a token? We're going to put you on the depth chart because we appreciate and you're talented enough to be there, because it's tough. It's, depending on the 5-for-5 rule, you don't want to burn a red shirt at any point. And but they do get 4 games, and they will have the opportunity. I expect to see them this weekend, especially in the second half, if the game's under control.
Absolutely. Should be an intriguing area to watch as well. Baylor really needs to get their run game going, and I'm sure Mason Miller is preaching that to his guys this week, and I bet that's something that Jake Spavital leans on in this game, even though I'd like to see them air it out. I'd like to see Taz Williams come down with a 50-yard reception, or, Ja'Cory Watson, another freshman who I'm intrigued to see, Michael Johnson Jr., the transfer from EMCC.
Or even Lewis Brown.
Yeah. Lewis Brown maybe get some reps, Jaden Porter, a lot of receivers that I'm hoping to see get some reps, but I'm also man, I want to see them win in the trenches. I want to see them really, impose their will on someone. They haven't done that so far this year.
Yeah. And I think go back to last year and the bye week, the off week ahead of Texas Tech, you had the chance to rep and work on those things. To me, this is the week. This is not an off week, but this is the week to go and say, I think it was Caden Siraki say, hey, they asked him what the emphasis was for this week of practice. And it's like, we're really working on double teams and moving people.
Yeah.
I don't think you go into this game against Samford without the intentions of this is what we're going to work on. Everybody knows Sawyer can throw the football. Everybody knows about the playmakers there. But it's also, we should go out and dominate this game running the football. And I think I truly believe that's going to be their full intentions of having that ability to do that and using your tight ends, getting Kelsey Johnson more reps, especially with Trigg most likely being out, get him kind of back accustomed to playing after having injuries last year. But kind of make a point to say, we're not done running the football. So if you want to, make your game plan shift and just cover our receivers moving forward, if Arizona State wants to do that, we're going to be more than happy to go and just run the football if you want to make that full on change. But they have to run the football and has to kind of get them in a groove this week moving forward for Big 12 play.
And it's not going to get any easier than this for running the football. This is a golden opportunity to really work on that. And so, I fully expect that. And I would like to see that as well from this offense. Okay, Colt. So we talked about the new guys a little bit. Give me a couple new guys, maybe one guy on the offense and one guy on the defense who you're really excited to see. I would say I'm not going to count Caden Knighton because I view him more as like he's part of the rotation. Like he's been playing a ton, but maybe a guy who hasn't been playing a whole lot who you're excited to see on offense and then on defense. Can be a true freshman, or I guess it could be just a depth guy.
Yeah. Offensively, I mean, I guess we're excluding quarterbacks here because we've already talked about that. But a guy that his name kind of kept popping up in my conversations in fall camp and even back in the spring was Mason Dossett and his ability he's moved from safety to receiver. They utilize him quite a bit as a deep shot. He's super fast. We know that from his track days and still running track at Baylor. If Baylor's throwing the ball in the second half, is he one of the first guys to kind of fill in that role, or they're taking deep shots? I don't know if that's the best opportunity for him to get looks, because if you're up by 50, I can't imagine Spav and Dave wanting to do that too much. But I would keep an eye on him. But I also think Lewis Brown, he's a guy that we have watched and heard about. He just hasn't had a ton of targets. Is this a game that he goes from the top and is getting targets in the first quarter from Sawyer? Is that a guy they try to mix in early on? Defensively, it's so tough because we've seen so many guys. Defensive line wise, who would it be? I don't really know because they've had to play so many. Maybe I would go with the offensive line, Sean Tompkins. I think if he's getting a lot of reps at left tackle, he's kind of the future there with Sidney Fugar being a senior, and he has a lot of potential. We heard so much about him, and obviously he played 5 snaps against SMU. He was the starting left tackle in that game, or for the second half, I believe. Yeah, was it the SMU game? It all runs together now. But he came in at some point, played the first 5 snaps, and that was the beginning of the second half, and didn't play anymore. But he has full potential to be very good, and they're going to rely on him a lot next year. So seeing him in a setting like this with extended snaps when your offense is trying to run the football, I'll be really watching that pretty close.
Yeah, that's definitely a really good one. I think for me, when I've been kind of just when I want to go with guys who we heard a lot about, and also guys that I saw some flashes from that I just kind of want to see if that continues. So the 2 guys on offense that I felt like, so one I heard the most about was Harrison Clough. Mm-hmm. I think for freshmen, he got the most buzz probably of any freshman on offense aside from Caden Knighton. And I just think he came in there and just basically took a guard spot. I mean, he just kind of took it and just and got talked about a ton. And honestly, based on just all the conversations I have had and everything that I've heard, I think he might be the backup guard at either spot as a true freshman. And so that's really interesting. I mean, unless they were willing to put Colton Siraki at one of the guard spots, which that obviously would make sense. But I just think there's something special with Harrison. I think he's going to be a really good player going forward. I don't necessarily know if that means he's going to be the full-on starter next year. I still think they could bring in a transfer to start. But I do think he's working his way up to this point where it's like, man, these are similar things that I heard about Colton Siraki when he was a true freshman, and things that I saw about him as well. And now you're seeing Colton as a very quality center already. Like you could see it against SMU. Like he's a good player already. So I've heard a lot of that with Harrison Clough. And then a guy that I saw, and this kind of goes against conventional wisdom a little bit, because I know everyone talked about Taz, and I think Taz is going to be really good. I think it's important to remember that Taz was still working his way back from that knee injury for a lot of spring and a little bit of fall. He got a lot closer to 100% by the end of fall, and he started playing a lot better. But the guy who just kind of quietly was brought up a lot and that I saw a lot from was actually Ja'Cory Watson. He had multiple really good performances in scrimmages. He's been playing slot, which we know the slot position is heavily utilized in this offense. And so I'm curious to see him. Curious about Taz as well, but Ja'Cory was just one who I think production-wise really stood out. And then on the defensive side, very excited to see Kamarian Morgan get a real opportunity here. He played 10 snaps against SMU, but I think this is a chance for him to actually get his first sack of his career in this game. I think there'll be opportunities for him to play a ton. I just don't think they're going to have to play Matthew Fobbs-White and Amari and Winston all that much. So he'll play a lot. Kyler Jordan will probably play a lot as well. But Kamarian could kind of put his fingerprints on this game. And then finally, Caleb Burns, just because, man, 4-star prospect. He's already played in 2 games. He's playing on special teams already. I think he's kind of in that third string mix at that will position. So to see him come in and, blitz and just play with his hair on fire and get an opportunity to show what he can do at a linebacker position that struggled. I'm very curious about that because we know he's got that 4-star potential and 4-star talent. So it'll be fun to watch these new guys and these kind of depth guys.
Yeah, and I think for a guy like Caleb, and I'll kind of wrap up with this and move on, but him having the chance to play and showing that he can be trusted is crucial.
Yep.
And not that they didn't trust him enough to potentially play him, but he's a freshman. And so you get him against Auburn, you get him in against SMU, and he costs you, then you kind of lose that trust. But you go in again in this game against Samford, and you go out and have 10 tackles in the second half or whatever it might be if they're trying to run the football.
Yeah.
You earn some trust that way. You're playing assignment football because he's physically capable. And Dave Aranda's big on trust. He got burned a couple of times last year, at Colorado game specifically. And if he doesn't trust that you're going to be in your right spot, he's going to have a quick trigger with you. And I'm really excited about Caleb, especially if he gets in there and makes some plays and he earns some more playing time.
Right. And important to remember with him, unlike Kamarian, he did arrive in the summer, not the spring. Yeah. So he hasn't been here as long as some of these other guys have been. Right. And so, those are 2 guys that I think down the stretch of this season, they could play meaningful football for Baylor. You would hope that these older guys at linebacker don't lose the job. But if a true freshman is just better, I mean, that bodes very well for the future. As far as Kamarian goes, he's going to play. Like, I think he's going to continue to play more and more behind Fobbs-White and Winston. And that's valuable. I mean, if they're going to play 2 edge guys more, then he's going to get on the field more. And so that'll be interesting to watch for sure. Okay, Colt. So we kind of know this can be a blowout, but I got to get your prediction for this game before we wrap up for today. So what do you think? Baylor versus Samford, who you got?
Yeah, I mean, my expectations for the defense is shut out. Like, if you're giving up extended drives, you're in trouble. I mean, I don't care if it's one drive or not. You better come out and focus in this game, and I think Baylor will. And defensively, if your special teams don't play better, then you can give up short fields and give up points. Like, there's just so many factors in this, and I expect Baylor to be focused in the details of this game. And for that, the variable is the offense and what they exactly decide to do. I mean, I could truly see a 52-0 type game. I mean, that depends. Maybe the offense scores more or the defense gets the score to elevate that score a little bit. But my expectation is that it better be that much under control. It should never be in doubt. So if I'm giving a prediction, let's say 52-0.
Okay, so we're like right around the same with the points there, though. I think I'm either at 52 or 55. I think I'm going to go with 52, just like you. So I'm going to go with the same there. But I just, man, I don't want to do this, but I think that they're going to move the football some. I think Baylor's going to hold them to field goals. So I think they're going to kick 2 field goals. I think it's going to be like 52-6. I don't trust the defense right now. And even though this is a bad offense, and even though Baylor's defense line could overwhelm the quarterback, if their starting unit plays long enough to where they get to test Baylor's depth in the secondary, I think that they could move the football a little bit and hit on maybe some explosives and get into field goal range. Now, if they're going for it on 4th down at, multiple times near in Baylor territory, well, then I'm going to be wrong on this prediction. But if they're just trying to put up points and they settle for those field goals, I think they might get 2 of them. So 52-6 is what I'm kind of at, which you're well in control of the game at that point anyway.
Yeah. I think for me, picking a shutout, it's more about team speed, strength, size on defense. And if you can't outmatch your opponent with older dudes on defense and control from a schematical standpoint, like, I can see one, hey, we had a bust and they get down to the red zone and kick a field goal. But if you're doing that multiple times in this game,
Yeah.
Like I just that scares me a whole bunch. I don't think that this team will allow that to happen. I think there's enough leaders that say, hey, we're treating this game. Now, let's say this is a 55-0 game and we're getting into the late third, fourth quarter, defensive backs rotating in and out, and they go down and have a couple drives. That's a different than, hey, at halftime it was 28-6.
No, my points are coming late. The points that I'm talking
and I can
about
see
are coming
that.
late. Yeah,
I mean, like, depending on who's in there, it would just scare me otherwise. If this first team unit, regardless of which defensive linemen are playing, who's out, like, their first 2 units should not be doing that. Like that would scare me really bad if that happened.
Definitely. So that is it for today. We will be back to recap the Samford game Sunday night, leading into Monday morning. So it should hit your podcast feed at least by Monday. And then Colt and I will also, of course, preview Arizona State next week. We have a Sikkim 365 Insider premium mailbag. So if you're a subscriber, you get to ask questions for that. It's premium only. So again, just another reason to become a Sikkim 365 premium subscriber. But thanks everyone for listening today. This has been the Bearcast on Sikkim365.com.
Join Sikkim 365 Premium on a $1 for 1 month trial to read our experts' notes and insights. Know about high school commits, off-season transfers, coaching staff changes, and so much more before the rest. Also, download the Sikkim 365 app on your iPhone today to get instant notifications of breaking news, read up on the latest inside info, easily interact with other Baylor fans on our forums, and get alerts for anything published by your favorite staff members.